listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
All right, what is happening? Hope you're well, and thank you for checking out my podcast, Straight to Video. As always, it's me, your host, Rob Lane, all set and ready for a brand new episode. So, as we all get a little older, and I think some of you will agree, it's tough to find new music and artists to become fans of. There's so much stuff out there, and it's all too easy to go back to the music we grew up on and continue to love. So, today I'm extra stoked to hopefully introduce you to someone who might not be on your music radar yet, but perhaps after you listen to our chat and give their songs a listen, you'll be all on board like me. Today's guest is Miss Velvet, who checks in with me all the way from Hollywood, USA. She has a brand new album, Traveler, which was just released this month, and dang, it's a good one. Once you pick yourself up from hearing how great her vocals are, you'll realise the songs are killer too. Unashamedly 70s guitar rock influenced, and it's a terrific collection of tunes from top to bottom. If you may be a fan of Canada's Sass Jordan, or more recent stuff like Dead Sarah, then I urge you to immediately dive into Miss Velvet's songs. She is far from new to the music scene though, having previously released albums as Miss Velvet and the Blue Wolf and touring all over the US, UK and Europe after personally being invited by the legend that is George Clinton, so she's been honing her live chops for some time now. The past few years though have seen major changes in her career, moving from New York to the West Coast, becoming a mother and then pretty much starting her music career from scratch, so it's great to see and hear it all paying off. This Straight to Video podcast is proudly presented to you, as always, in association with Affinity Photo, an incredible piece of photo editing software which I've been using all the time for graphic design the past couple of years. Affinity have been supporting this show for the past year, and they've recently agreed to continue our relationship, so I'm extra buzzed to have them still on board. Affinity Photo is used to create the podcast episode art where you see each week, and it's an extremely affordable alternative to other programs on the market, so please, if you can, check them out at affinity.serif.com. Alright, let's dive into this week's show. If after our talk you want to learn more about Miss Velvet, then head on over to officialmissvelvet.com or check out the new album Traveler wherever you listen to your music. But right now, please enjoy my straight to video chat with the awesome Miss Velvet.
What up, homie? I can already feel our electricity happening.
We're doing it.
We're fucking doing it.
Lovely to meet you. How's it going?
So good. I hear an accent.
You do, yes. From the UK.
From the UK. Let's go. My sister moved there 2 years ago. So when I moved out to Cali, like post-pandemic, she moved to London. So it's just that accent, and like her kids now, they're like, Mummy, they're doing the mummy. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, that's just everything. Even if you just moved there, for the accent.
Has she settled in? Is she settled in all good?
Yeah, she's settled in. They love it. They actually went countryside. So Oxfordshire, yeah. Such a drastic move, like New York City girls, and now she's in the countryside and, you know, I'm in Cali.
Fantastic. So I was diving into a little of your touring history, and I saw you played Rock City in Nottingham back in 2018 with George Clinton. That's just down the road from me.
Really? Oh my God, I loved that area. Yeah, the crowd was amazing that night. Like, you guys turn it out there. Like, they were ready to go.
Yeah, that's a legendary venue, that is. That's where I saw all my very first gigs.
It was such kind of like a moment to also be with George there. He had such like his loyal, dedicated fans that have just watched him for years, and then coming to like experience something that he's put his new stamp on. So it was cool. They were just so warm and welcoming and honestly like badass. Like the energy in that room was like, it just fueled you, had that like really cool circulatory moment.
That's like 5 years ago now. I mean, a lot's happened since then around the world, but your life in particular has gone through some incredible changes. What do you think the 2018 version of yourself would have said if they'd have known what was on the horizon? Becoming a mother, a new band, new home, whole new musical sound almost as well. Would that have blown your mind?
I think it's still like when you say questions like that, I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm doing it. I think it was so scary in the beginning, just even post-pandemic, and kind of what I mentioned earlier, actually coming out to Cali and starting anew. I remember like driving up and down that PCH, and it's beautiful. And it's like you have the mountains on the right and you have the ocean on the left. And it's like that full California magicness that's happening. Yet I'm like looking up at these mountains like, holy shit, I have to start over. Like I have to literally start over. And it was daunting at times and kind of scary, like I said, but knowing that, no, you know what, I'm here. I always wanted to come out to Cali. What's a better time than to just say like, fuck it and let's go. And, you know, I have an amazing manager and he was like, I'm going to introduce you to a couple people and let's just one foot in front of the other, like one foot in front of the other, Velvet. Let's go.
Your new record, Traveler, it's a week old today. At least from being released. How's this past week been putting out new music to the world?
You know, it's been full of just beautiful, beautiful energy moments. And I've had a lot of engagement and everything on all my socials. And I think that's what's the most exciting to see is, you know, I haven't been out on the road like I was before. I've been playing a couple local shows here in LA and building that following. And I did an album release here and that LA crowd came out strong. But I think what's been cool is like I used to go to the merch table every night after those shows with George Clinton. So it was like over 150 shows. I'm down at that merch table. And I said to myself, like, how can I make that one-on-one connection now and have a little bit of that human element, but how do I do it through my socials? So through this last week, anyone that's been just like, hey, I downloaded the record, I'm like, boom, let's go. Let's have a full conversation about it. And it's been amazing because there's a group of mothers that just through this now, like I know their whole life story. They've listened to the record. They've passed it on to their friends. And I think that human element moment is just what's so, you know, it's missing today a little bit.
It's so important, though. It's so important these days.
It is. You have these fans, like someone the other day is like, what's my call to action? What do I need to do as a Velvet fan to get this music out in the world? And I'm like, I love that. I don't think we would have had that if I didn't take like 20 minutes and like spitball with this guy. And it's just so special. And I think that's like what I took away from the George Clinton tour that I still hold today is like, he would be down there too every night. He would come down, you know, and come see us and see his fans. And he would invite fans up onto his stage. Like that's what he always does. But he makes that human element immediately at that show. And I was just like, okay, I want to use that. Like in this release with this record, even though it's being done on social media, let's do it like that. Let's get real. So it was really a beautiful week and just these fans that I can kind of see on the ground level with me that want this mission to break the new iteration of Miss Velvet. And so it's been so special.
It's like the old school street team thing, getting out on the street and spreading the word.
Full guerrilla style. I'm into it. I feel it.
You mentioned you did an album launch show out in LA. Is it Desert 5 spot, which is like right in the heart of Hollywood? How did that go?
It was amazing. One of the bookers there heard a couple of our songs and we knew them through some of our guitarists and bassists. And they were like, listen, do your show here, but we kind of want to get you on as a residency and we will help build your base here in LA. And I had some venues fortunate enough in New York, old school, that did the same for me before I did that tour with George. And I think it's so important if you can build that hub, that base, and lucky enough to get bookers at venues that are like, we get you, let's get everyone behind this movement. So I was so lucky that these guys were like, do your album release. They even chucked on another chick's album release. Like, I just love these guys. They're like, let's pack this room. Let's mix, make it a melange. Like, it was more country rock. They're like, fuck it. Let's just bring everyone together. So I think it's cool out here in LA that scene, that rock and roll scene is alive and thriving.
Is that a new venue? I'm not familiar with that one. Is that one which has cropped up in the last few years?
Yeah, it has. It's a new venue and it's kind of like a good scene. I mean, the other night I was doing a show there and I remember doing sound check and Luke from the Struts was just sitting there.
They're a band from just down the road from me as well.
Love them. Guys are turning out like proper art. I was just doing a sound check and he like came up to me after the sound check. He goes, I'm going to stay for the show. And so he stayed for the show and we're now like buddies on, you know, the grid and DMing back and forth. And he was like, that was a brilliant show and keep doing it. And I was like, can I open up for you?
Hey, got to do it. Such a small world. Everything's connected one way or another.
So connected. But I kind of feel like that was also one of my heavy things that I was fixated on coming from New York is how do I get into that movement that's still alive here here in LA. And I feel like they really appreciate rock and roll music. They appreciate classic rock. That's been really cool. And I'm like seeing it bubble. I have bookers writing me from the Roxy, like just through Instagram. And I'm like, yes, this is it.
How many shows has this current lineup of the band done?
We've done about like 5, just easing into it. And now all the figures are out for 2024. And I can't say it yet. Don't want to jinx it, but hopefully a biggie for 2024.
The album itself, it's like a real rock and roll tour de force. The roots of it are in classic rock, but it sounds so vital and energetic, ups and downs, a real journey like its name. Is it just available digitally at the moment?
Yes.
It's got its roots in the 70s, so it's screaming out for a vinyl release at some point, surely.
You are correct. And if we lock in this tour, I'm like, we're going vinyl. It screams for it.
While it's a real big rock album, the title track is like a real shining moment, which holds off from the big guitars. Was that a conscious decision all the time, or did that particular song go through quite a few changes?
No, I love that question. And that was kind of my going to California Zeppelin moment. Yeah, so that kind of felt when I spoke to S.J. Jones, who's the producer and my songwriting partner, we really focused in on, we want everything to feel almost vast and spacious and let that vocal just feel like the height of that triangle. It was a real conscious decision that even for the title track, as much as everything kind of feels like a wall of sound with the guitars, like you said on the record, and ballsy and in your face, I kind of wanted this moment to be like, here's the voice, and let everything around it just feel super grand, but vast. That was my going to California Zeppelin moment, for sure.
How was it hearing everything come together in the studio? Did you and SJ have a clear vision for this album and how you wanted it to sound? Or was you like writing on acoustics, then like, right, let's bring some band people in, and then it just transformed it again? What was the process?
What was amazing with her was when we initially got introduced on the Zoom, I had said, okay, do you want to come live with me in my home? Because the topics and everything that I wanted to talk about, and like you said, the essence of like having a 70s stylistic approach to this record, I was like, let's live together the way they used to live. Like, let's be immersed in each other's company. And I want to talk about being a rock and roll artist on the road, coming off of that now, being a mother, straddling both of that. But I feel like you need to be with me and see it firsthand and live it. So she moved in for 2 months and became part of my family. And what was so special is like, I'd come out in the morning and she'd have the acoustic guitar like in the kitchen. My toddler would be like running around and she's like, what about this riff over everything? And it was cool. It happened super organically where she'd maybe play a riff. I'd have stuff in the journal. And then I felt like everything was so ready to bubble up. So the muse was definitely, she was just coming down for those 2 months for sure. And we went into our little studio downstairs and she's a force. I mean, she can do drums, guitar, bass, keys. So she would lay down that foundation and then I would lay down a demo vocal. And then we went over to this great studio called Revolver Studios. And then we called in all these great studio musicians out here that have played with everybody. Even the keyboardist played with Joe Cocker. So like we wanted that 70s essence on there. And then everyone put their own juju on it. But it was very conscious of once we have the foundation, now let's just go in there and like have complete abandonment and let the magic happen in a real studio playing together.
Did you reference any particular albums or sounds which you wanted to try and capture?
Definitely Zeppelin album 4 is just all over this. A little bit of Heart.
Nice.
A little bit of Heart. I love Van Wilson. I love what they're about. And early Aerosmith.
I got to ask then, are you a fan of the Cameron Crowe film, Almost Famous? Because that embodies all of that.
Someone the other day was like, it's the band from Almost Famous. And I was like, I'll take it. Boom. Still water.
Yeah.
I love that film.
It's just the best. You're out on the West Coast now, but you grew up in New York City on the other side of the country. What was New York life for you as a child growing up? Was it an exciting city? Was you living in Manhattan or was you like kind of just outside?
No, I was living in Manhattan, born and bred New Yorker. And I kind of say that city beats you down and simultaneously builds you up. I think it gave me so much grit and resilience and also just I don't know, it just has this forceful way of kind of pushing you into uncomfortable situations. It's such a city of unbelievable, talented people that are always hustling. The hustle is so real in New York. So I felt like growing up with that and having such a big arts and culture like foundation there in New York, it's kind of like if you're in the arts, it's like you better step up. Like you better do something. And I love that city because it really gave me my sea legs. You know, I played every local haunt there and just did every dive bar and did every venue. I mean, it really just like gave me that power to know that when something like the George thing would break, that I had the gritty sea legs to go in any circumstance.
You've been exposed to music like really, really young. I think did you start learning piano at like 3?
You've done a deep dive.
But what was like some of the first music that took hold, which you felt was your own, not necessarily your parents' records, something you personally took for yourself? Because I know you've mentioned Annie Lennox, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, she's definitely a big one for me. Annie Lennox and Tina Turner are some of the biggies. And then my all-time favorite, where I remember somebody showed me a clip on YouTube of Janis Joplin singing Summertime. And I just remember like my heart beating. I was super young, my heart beating super fast. And I had tears in my eyes. It just felt like something I was like, how can something be so raw and guttural and not perfect? And it just blew my mind that it was so authentically her. And I just remember sitting there being like, that voice is big and powerful. And she's not afraid of using that and exploring that, even whatever that means, and it taking shape and form in her own life. And I think I knew my voice at a young age was like super big. And I remember early years in Manhattan playing shows where I've had industry people come out to the show and be like, voice is too big. Don't get it. Wrong era. Don't understand it. And I just remember that hitting me really, really hard at the time being young, and just remember being like, no, I'm going to watch that YouTube clip of Janis Joplin and just stick with it.
How did the Janis Joplin clip compare to perhaps what was in the charts at the time? Dare I ask what was in the charts at the time?
Spice Girls. And like, I remember all my friends being like, let's go to Planet Hollywood. The Spice Girls are coming through. And yeah, that was fun. But I just remember being the black sheep. Can I listen to Janis? And can I put a feather boa around my neck? And my mom just like, okay, you know, everyone's doing Spice Girl routines.
Was you a big record shopper in New York then when you was discovering all this old music? Did you have a favorite record store, or was digital and streaming coming to the forefront once you immersed yourself?
It was a lot of digital and streaming. And I think that was kind of where we were finding everything. But there was a bunch down on the Lower East Side record shops that I just remember, you know, going into kind of like as a teenager and being like, are we allowed to like touch these records? And they're like, no, like you can buy these records. You know, it's such an anomaly. But now I think what's so cool is, like you said, it's such a cool full circle moment. And I think for even, you know, our era of being like, we can sell vinyl as merch, and it being something that's a specialty item. Now, when I listen to these records on my vinyl player, I'm like, okay. I mean, the sound is just beautiful.
Where did you go and watch your first concerts? Dare I ask what the first concert was?
You know what? One of my first concerts that had the biggest impact on me, I was traveling through Europe and I was with my parents and we were in Paris. And a dear friend of mine was like, I'm going to take you to a concert tonight. And I was like, okay, what is it? She's like, I'm not going to tell you what it is. And we rocked up to U2. And this was like 15 years ago, maybe. This was like my formative big concert. And I remember in the middle of the show, Bono making a nod to his father who had passed away. And he went off on a tangent and did this operatic type moment. And I just remember sitting back, and I love opera too. And I just remember him taking this tangent and the way he was singing, and he had like vibrato in his voice, yet he was still rocking out. And I just remember being so moved and touched by that. And I remember turning to my friend and being like, I want to do that.
How familiar was you with U2's music?
I wasn't, you know, a heavy rock and roll girl where I knew all those bands. Kind of just had my taste of like the female front women like Tina and Janis and Lennox, but seeing like a band. And that's a great question. I think seeing that band was something that I was like, yes, I'm a front woman, but I like that family-ness.
You don't get many bigger ones than U2.
It's so inspiring. And I try to always kind of like hold that as a North Star to be like, I love the way when he's on stage, it's a family. You hear it the way they play off of each other and everything. And so that's been super, super just moving into this new record. And with the guys out here that are fabulous, it's like everyone has their own persona on stage, but the more comfortable you get, like anything, you know, and I don't play to tracks because I really believe in like, if that part is moving, like, let's double it. Let's double it. Let's lean into that. Let's pivot. And so I think that's something that maybe those formative years, like maybe seeing you two super young, definitely had that impact.
Is there anything you're missing about New York now you're out in California, or has it been like a total reset for you both creatively and mentally being out there on the West Coast?
Total reset. I have to say, total reset. A lot of my dear friends are like, well, we know you're going to like come home. I'm like, I'm not coming home. Like, this is my home. I really needed that reset. And not only musically, and I think you hear it even on the record, it's like it has an out West feeling. It's like those bands that came out here in the Laurel Canyon area. It's like they came out here searching for that sound. And you hear it on those records, like you hear it on the Eagles records and things like that. And Joni Mitchell, it's like you hear it lyrically and sonically. And I think that was something that it's like, I believe Traveler, you taste that.
Had you actually toured out there much in the past with the Blue Wolf? Had you done many shows out on the West Coast?
We did. We did a big run out here and we did a lot through San Diego. And what's great is I just got a residency in San Diego starting December. So it's kind of amazing that certain, again, spots are getting behind the residency vibe and helping me build, you know, that next iteration of Miss Velvet.
The videos from the new album, they're so cinematic and I'm presuming done out in California. And I love the photo shoot you did with SJ outside the Chateau Marmont.
Oh, I love that.
Have you enjoyed discovering all like these iconic places out in Hollywood?
Yeah, that's definitely been one of the big things as well. Like I remember SJ and I were going to an event and I was like, listen, just grab your guitar anyways. Like we'll swing by the chateau. And it was like midnight. All these people were coming out of a party and her and I were just like, fuck it, let's busk. We were doing our thing. And I think that's also been just cool to like go to those legendary spots and feel that energy of Cali. That video that I shot with Gus Black, who did the new Greta Van Fleet music video. And he was like, let's go out to the Santa Monica Mountains. I know we talk about that all the time. And him and I had some amazing brainstorming sessions. He's like, you talk about the eagles soaring, you talk about those mountains. Let's give us that. Let's show your audience that that is actually the world we're painting and give them that California feeling. So yeah, it was so special that day shooting that video. And we got that eagle. We had an amazing eagle handler that came. And it was just a very surreal and full circle moment from me moving out here and looking at these, you know, birds of prey and eagles soaring over those mountains and feeling so, oh shit, I got to climb this mountain again as an artist. And then standing there 2 years later with that bird and my band and my producer, and I had my mom on that shoot. And it was kind of, you know, it was just like, you know, it takes a village.
How was it seeing the first rough cuts of it coming together?
I called Gus and he's like, what's wrong? And I was like, no, I'm just having a moment. It's all coming together. He's like, dude, you're special. We got this. Like, I want to paint this picture for you. So I think it really did come across. And I think, you know, the title track, Traveler, like you said, is really about my travels internally, musically, and as a mother, and coming through this next iteration of Velvet.
Your image plays an important role in the whole Miss Velvet persona. Have you found any cool clothing spots out in Hollywood or met any designers? Is Melrose Avenue still the place for clothing?
It is. By the way, it is. It's still got like great spots. I think that was also a huge shift that needed to happen as well. You know, I used to wear like super low rise studded leather pants, leather jackets and crop tops. And it was amazing and it was extravagant. But I was like, something shifting like sonically. And then me after the birth of those two kids. And I remember going into my closet day of shooting that video and everyone's waiting on set. And I'm looking in my closet and I'm like, what the fuck am I going to wear? Who am I? I remember looking at this suit that's a Vivienne Westwood suit, and she was such a pioneer in movement in the female androgynous sexuality of women and being powerful and sexy, but not always showing skin. And so I think that was a huge light bulb moment where I was like, okay, here's the next record. You want an evolution of Miss Velvet. The wardrobe's got to change. So I think that was a very profound moment, like standing in my closet alone and looking at the next evolution, which was like, okay, it's a suit. You know, I can feel that androgynous power that I used to feel with my leather, which used to feel like my armor, but now it's just shifting.
How did you originally hear about Vivienne Westwood? Because we've got a Vivienne Westwood store out in Nottingham. I don't know if you got a chance to visit when you was over.
I did. I went there straight away. I'm a huge Vivienne Westwood fan. I followed her for years and years and years.
That whole story is incredible.
Incredible. I need to do even more of a deep dive on her, but I remember she had some stuff going on at the Met in New York where they did one of her full collections, and they showed just how she began in the punk movement and how she was able to evolve that into couture. And she never lost that edge. And I think that that's something, as much as musicians are big influence to me, it's like she in her designing has been a big influence of like, how do you take something and not lose the core, but evolve in time and elevate it?
Got to ask though, you mentioned like you did all like the leather stuff and all that kind of thing. I got to ask about the photo which was used for the Lovin' in the Afternoon single release. I'm a huge Van Halen fan, so I was wondered, has anyone mentioned how it looks like David Lee Roth on the back of the first Van Halen album?
A bunch of people have mentioned that, and that was a slight nod. I love him. And yes. So I took that photo a couple years ago and I never used it. And I took it with a great photographer when I was in Israel and I was traveling with my boyfriend, but now my husband at the time. And he knew this guy and he was a great fashion photographer. And he was like, you should shoot with him. And he was huge rock and roll buff. And I shot with him and he's like, can you like lean back? And I was like, oh, I can lean back. And then I like went into the full back bend and we were playing some rock and roll music. And he was like, oh shit, that's it. And I remember him like sending me the shot and me thinking immediately, I'm like, yo, it's Van Halen, but like, when do I use this? It just felt very apropos to start off that journey with here's this moment and now it's going to transform. But I remember going into that back bend and just being like, God, that feels good.
I always end each episode with the same question, so I might put you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah.
I want you to time travel a little to a Friday night in the late 80s or early 90s, and you head into the video store. What movie soundtrack do you have on the Walkman, and what 3 tapes are you going to rent for the weekend?
All right, Walkman. I'm going to go Top Gun.
Yes. Top Gun soundtrack goes head to head with Rocky IV for me.
I love it. I just feel like that's a Walkman. Like I'm walking 80s. I've got like a puffer jacket on. Movies I'm going to rent. All right. I'm a sucker for Dirty Dancing. I just have to say it. Just like sucker. Scarface, one of my all-time favorites.
Is that a New York thing?
It's such a New York thing. The whole movement was such a New York thing. Like Michelle Pfeiffer and that blonde bob cut, that silky dress. I remember all of us were like, we want to be Michelle Pfeiffer and Scarface. Like, that's who we are.
One more.
Caddyshack.
Caddyshack. Nice. Great stuff. That's a night in, that is. Get some pizza and some beers and you're sorted.
I'm in.
You had Scarface. How do you feel about The Warriors being from New York? Is that a big film for you?
You know, it isn't a big film. Now I feel like I need to watch that.
You'll love it. It's been awesome to chat with you.
So awesome.
Good luck with the new album. I'll spread the word for you. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day. It looks fantastic out there.
It is so good. It's sunny. That's why we moved.
Sending a big thank you to Miss Velvet for bringing all the energy and good vibes to this week's Straight to Video podcast. The new album Traveller is out now on all streaming platforms, so please give it a listen. Check out all the amazing promo videos and make sure to reach out on social media and let her know that you heard all about it on this very show. If you want to check out a video clip from this episode, then you can find it on the STV Podcast YouTube page, along with hundreds more clips. And if you could, please like and subscribe to help grow the channel to make more people aware of it. So that's all for this episode, but please check back next Friday for a brand new show. So until then, always be kind, please rewind and unwind, and I'll speak to you all real soon.